The one thing that Donald Trump loves more than tariffs is banning large swaths of the world from entering the United States. And if you guys recall from his last presidency, in 2017, he issued 2 separate travel bans. The first one got shut down like within a week because it was unconstitutional and violated all sorts of different provisions. And then the second version, the 2.0 version, which came out a few months later, was also immediately shut down. So he was not really successful in preventing people from his Muslim country list from entering the United States. One of the things that I took away from his first set of Muslim country bans, Trump's travel ban 1.0 and 2.0 from 2017, was that permanent residents have a right to re-enter the US. The Trump administration successfully denied the entry of anyone who was less than a permanent resident. Students, people on parole, all those people, tourists, all subject to denial lawfully. They could all be denied entry into the US legally. It's not that much of a stretch to deny entry of those people. But my understanding from 2017 cases was that permanent residents hold a unique classification of immigration status and they have a right to enter the US. But all of that is being thrown into question now with people like Marco Rubio posting things like permanent residents do not have a right to live in the United States. I'm not sure he's correct on that one, and I'm curious to see these policies go back up to the courts and to get some specific rulings on these, because it was my understanding from 2017 onward that permanent residents do have an absolute right to live in the US, subject to several caveats, as long as they follow all the rules. But now we're seeing permanent residents who, in my opinion, did nothing wrong, getting deported from the United States for exercising free speech. Now, whether or not you agree with that speech or not is a different question. Maybe there were better ways of going about expressing that speech, but it was my understanding that if you follow all the rules of your residency and you're not convicted of any crimes, you cannot be denied entry into the US, and you certainly can't be placed into removal proceedings and deported. But all of that is now being flipped on its head. Trump's new travel ban lists many different countries. This is a dramatic expansion from his last set of travel bans. And there are 3 sets of categories for this travel ban. Now, I make these videos about a week before they air, so by the time this video comes out, this travel ban will probably be in full effect. So there are some red countries, orange countries, and yellow countries. The red countries, all travel is banned for all types of visas with no exceptions. The orange countries, visas are sharply restricted, and then the yellow countries, there are some issues with the way those governments do their vetting, and they have 60 days to address the US government's concerns to avoid being put in one of the orange or red categories. So what are the red country categories? These are the countries that are going to definitely be denied entry into the US. Those include Afghanistan, Bhutan, Cuba, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen. So if you're from those countries, doesn't matter whether you have a tourist visa, student visa, if you are applying for an immigrant visa through an I-130 petition from a family member, once you go to the consulate, your visa will either be refused or might be placed into a prolonged administrative processing, which basically means they're not going to make a final decision on your case for years. And once it's in the administrative processing phase, the only way to really get it out, other than waiting a few years until Trump's out of office, is to sue the government. So I'll leave that where it is and move on to the next category, because that's a whole new video by itself. So the orange category, these are the countries for which visas will be sharply restricted. And by sharply restricted, you should pretty much expect it to mean almost all visas from these countries will be denied unless they qualify for an exception. And those countries include Belarus, Eritrea, Haiti, which is shocking because we allowed Haitians to come here with a humanitarian parole process and now to apply for temporary protected status, and now you're gonna just like wholesale deny all Haitians in the future from entering the US? Kind of crazy. But anyway, let's continue. Laos, Myanmar, Pakistan, Russia, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Turkmenistan. I was curious to see Russia on this list because of Trump and Putin's new love affair. I'm curious to see what happens with that. I'm curious to see whether Russia makes it onto the final version of this. And again, by the time this video is out, you guys might even know the answer to this, so I apologize for the lag. All right, now these are the countries that have 60 days to address the United States concerns. You might notice almost all of these are in Africa, which, you know, if you recall what Trump said in 2017 about certain African countries, I'm not going to repeat it, but that comes to mind. These countries include Angola, Antigua and Barbuda, Benin, Burkina Faso, Cambodia, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Chad, Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, which I didn't know was different than Republic of Congo, Dominica, Equatorial Guinea, Gambia, Liberia, Malawi, Mali, Mauritania, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Sao Tome and Principe, Vanuatu, and Zimbabwe. I didn't know some of these were actually countries, so that's all news to me. But all of these countries are going to be on the possible travel ban list. One thing to note, if you are currently in the US from one of these countries, you will not be restricted from applying for adjustment of status just because your country is on this list. Let me give you an example. If you're from Iran and you are outside of the US but married to a US citizen and you're trying to go through the consulate to enter the US the right way, right? You'll probably be restricted from doing that during Trump's administration. But same scenario, but now you're in the US on a tourist visa and you're gonna leave in a few months. In that scenario, if you're married to a US citizen, you might just be eligible for adjustment of status in the US, even if there's a ban on everyone from your country entering the US. That's for entering through customs with a visa. But once you're already in the US, even if your country ends up on the banned list, you might still be eligible and probably will be eligible for adjustment of status as long as you meet the other requirements. So keep that in mind. In that scenario, if you're eligible for adjustment of status, the worst thing you might do is leave and then be restricted from re-entering at the consulate. If you're eligible for adjustment of status and you're not otherwise violating any other immigration law or US law, I would strongly consider applying for adjustment of status if you're eligible. If you're not sure whether or not you're eligible, don't overstay your visa and then talk to a lawyer after that. Speak with a lawyer immediately so you could try to fix your status before you fall out of status and are in violation of any immigration laws. This list of proposed banned countries, and might be an actual list of banned countries by the time this video airs, is much longer than the last group of countries that Trump tried to ban from his last presidency. And I can only imagine that this list is the first of several series of country bans to come. I'm curious to see what the Trump administration does with these countries, and I'm very curious to see how the courts respond and restrict Trump's ability to deny people from these countries from entering the US. One thing from the last series of court cases is that permanent residents from these countries will still be allowed back into the US. But as you see happening now, they are probably going to be given a hard time in the airport. Customs officers might be instructed to send them to secondary inspection, interrogate them, heavily scrutinize their cases, and to try to deport people directly from the airport, even though they might not be able to actually do so if the person understands their rights and ends up exercising those rights. I recently made a couple videos about what to do if you're re-entering the US as a permanent resident and customs officers in the airport interrogate you or take you to secondary inspection. I'll make more videos on that in the near future, but this is all I know right now about the proposed countries that are banned from being allowed into the US. As more information becomes available, I'll create more videos on this topic. If you want to stay up to date with all of the latest changes to Trump's immigration policies, be sure to subscribe. I make a lot of videos on family-based immigration, naturalization, and immigration court policies and changes and do-it-yourself videos. If you're interested in any of those things, I'm the guy for you. If you need any assistance with your personal immigration process, whether it's marriage to a spouse or petitioning for your parents, or you're applying for citizenship and just need some guidance, even though you want to do it yourself, be sure to schedule a consultation directly with me, Pouyan Darian. I would love to assist you with your case. And if you're new to my channel, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time for another video.